cornerback David Long, tackle Bobby Evans, defensive tackle Greg Gaines, and a couple other guys. Last year, this team, like I said, had 13 wins, but their Pythag was only 11.75. Okay? So they didn't blow people out necessarily. They won their games. Their defense gave up some passing yards, as we saw, and some running yards. The Rams worked on their defensive backs and offensive line on this draft. They were pretty healthy last year compared to years past. And you have to dock them a little for that. I do not know what the heck's going on with Todd Gurley and the coach. What the hell was that at the end of the season, right? Especially for fantasy owners and whatnot. It was worse in the playoffs, really. But it's like it's like Sean McVay lost trust in Todd Gurley, and I don't know what the hell was going on there. We thought he was injured. He seemed injured, but it kind of carried on through the postseason. And then when he played, he looked all right. It's just very strange. They did get a nice steal with Darrell Henderson from Memphis. He averaged 9 yards per run in Memphis. Okay, now I know it's Memphis conference is not nearly as good, but it's still something significant to do. So the Rams somewhat address their edge rusher with Clay Matthews, and he's coming home. He went to USC, so that's kind of a good thing. He needed to kind of push the reset button. Some players when they slow down a little bit where they're at, sometimes it's nice to go to a new place. So I think that's good for him. Really good for the Rams. I mean, did they really need an edge rusher with Aaron Donald, though? The guy was just amazing. Probably the best defensive player last year. Him, Khalil Mack, and J.J. Watt, Losing LaMarcus Joyner was hard, I think, but they did pick up Eric Waddell, for the safety. And I think that, fills in a little bit. But what I'm worried about is losing Sue, okay? And Sue was hit and miss this year. He tried when he wanted to, typical Dominican Sue. But he was a beast over there, and he always took 2 blockers. And, I think the Rams might have improved their interior offensive line. I do like that. But I am concerned about them giving up some yards on the run. Let's look at their situation. They have, like I said, a medium schedule. Looking at their Pythag with what they did, I have 12.4 wins. They are pretty healthy. I have minus a half game there. They had a medium easy schedule last year, minus a half game there. Medium schedule coming into this year. Then their key losses, I took away a half game for the Sue loss and the Marcus Joyner and Mark Barron. But what they gained back, I actually gave them 3/4 of a game because I did like Clay Matthews, Eric Weddle, and their draft was pretty good. Okay, so I felt half game was too low, and a full game was too much for their draft and free agency. So they netted about a quarter game there. So the Vegas win totals at 10.5, and my win totals at 11.65. It's interesting for them that their schedule is medium because, they have to play the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys. But, the Cardinals are not going to be that good. And like I said earlier about the division, the NFC South, Tampa was really bad. Carolina wasn't that good. Atlanta had no defense. So that's a benefit for them. One of the weaker NFC divisions, except for the Saints, obviously. And then the AFC North. Cincinnati's really bad. Cleveland's supposed to be better, of course, but Pittsburgh regressed a little bit. Baltimore, we don't know about the quarterback. So, I can see that, 11, 12 games winning this year. So it's not a bet for me, though. 10.5 is kind of high. And, it's just a little high. Their division, I think, improved a little bit with the 49ers being healthier. It's not quite enough, but it's definitely a strong lean to the over, though. So if you're thinking about it and you're a Rams fan, I'm leaning over 10.5 here. And it's kind of rare when a team has that great year. They go to the Super Bowl. They usually regress a bit. But we'll see what happens with them. I came up with, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Next team we have is the Seattle Seahawks. Last year, Seattle had 10 wins, and boy, was I wrong about that one. This was one of the ones I got wrong. I bet them under, I believe it was under 8 wins last year, and they got 10 wins. They gave up their Legion of Boom, and I thought it was going to be a complete bust. I thought their offensive line wasn't going to be that good, and their running game would be a problem. And what do? They run the ball a ton. Russell Wilson plays smart. They shock some teams. They squeeze by some teams. Get lucky against Denver. They got lucky against the Cardinals, one of those games last year. Just got it done, and it's because of one man. It's Russell Wilson. When you're a quarterback as good as Russell Wilson with pocket presence and can roll out and throw the ball, you don't need as good of an offensive line as other quarterbacks do. You're always going to be in the game if you have a few players that can make some catches. But that's how I got burned on that one, and I'm definitely admitting I was wrong. I'm not going to be betting the Seahawks unders anytime soon. Because of Russell Wilson. He deserved to be the highest paid quarterback in the offseason. So their win total is 8.5. And at-large games are against the Minnesota Vikings and Philadelphia Eagles. Key losses, defensive end Frank Clark, surprising trade right before the draft to move up. Wide receiver Doug Baldwin. He was Russell Wilson's crutch, kind of, Safety Earl Thomas. He didn't really play much of the season anyway. Cornerback Justin Coleman, running back Mike Davis, and a few other people. Sebastian Janikowski. Key additions, kicker Jason Myers and guard Mike Lupati. Who they drafted? Well, they drafted a lot. They got defensive end L.J. Collier, safety Marquise Blair, wide receiver D.K. Metcalf, best receiver in the draft from a numbers standpoint and draft board standpoint. Onside linebacker Cody Barton, wide receiver Gary Jennings, guard Phil Haynes, cornerback Ugo Amadi, inside linebacker Ben Burr-Kirven, a couple other guys. Like I said, this team started out the season without Cam Chancellor, and then Earl Thomas went out after a few games, and Cam retired and all that. So you would think that I'd give them a game back for injuries, but if they're not going to be no longer Seahawks, it shouldn't matter. The team overachieved, like I said. Man, the Seabirds, they have a medium schedule this year. They lost a ton, but they still seem to make it work over there with Pete Carroll, I take a game away for losing Clark, Baldwin, Coleman, and Deion Jordan, I suppose. That's why I take a game away, but it's not because of Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas. But I got to give them a game back for having so many draft picks. They got the best wide receiver in the draft in DK Metcalf. They filled some holes. From a number standpoint, let's see what I got. 10 wins last year, 10.47 Pythagorean. It's even higher. So you go with 10.2, and then I'm not taking away for anything for injuries or giving them. They had a medium schedule last year, medium schedule this year. -1 for what they lost, and give them back 1 for what they gained. You're right back at 10.2. But you think that's a play. It's a 1.7 difference from 8.5. But my biggest things are, they had a plus 15 turnover margin last year. And that's something you need to look at. You have to look at why they did better. It's very important when you're going over these win totals to take those outlying teams out. Plus 15 turnover margin. It was huge. Okay. And now they are redoing their defense again, it seems. So the fact that I went under last year, I saw something, and I don't want to go over 8.5 and get double burned again. Plus, the other thing, they have to play the Eagles for an at-large game, which I said possibly is better than the Cowboys even. So it's like they're playing the best team in the NFC East. So that's not good. So right now, it's a lean over 8.5 wins. And, if I make any changes, I'll probably send out a tweet. All right, the next team is the San Francisco 49ers. They won 4 games last year. And their season win total is 8. Double this year. What a difference. Well, their schedule is medium. Their at-large games are against the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Redskins. Key losses. Well, they definitely have some losses, right? Reuben Foster is one of them. He was their linebacker, but he kind of went crazy anyway. They lost Pierre Garcon, didn't play out a lot of games. Punter Bradley Pinion, defensive tackle Earl Mitchell, defensive end linebacker Cassius Marsh. Key additions. Outside linebacker Quan Alexander, defensive end D Ford from the Chiefs that lined up offsides during that playoff game. Running back Telvin Coleman from the Atlanta Falcons. He played a ton last year when Freeman was hurt. Cornerback Jason Verrett. Inside linebacker. Not inside linebacker. Cornerback Robert Alford. And inside linebacker David Mayo. And wide receiver Jordan Matthews. That's a ton of players. They got a lot of big names there. Whom they drafted? Nick Bosa, the number 1 rated player in the draft. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel. Wide receiver Jalen Hurd. Punter Mitch Wishnowski. A couple other guys. This is pretty much a tale of 2 different teams from last year and this year. In 2018, the 49ers had the 6th hardest schedule. And losing quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo early marked this team for doom. Okay, I really like how they finished their season, though, beating the Broncos, the Seahawks, playing the Bears tough, and they scored 32 points with Nick Mullins against the Rams. So, being that they're decimated by injuries last year, you got to give them a ton back. I mean, they lost their running back, McKinnon, before the season started, and then lost like 2 more running backs throughout the year. Okay, and as far as losing to free agency, they didn't lose much more than Reuben Foster because Pierre Garcon didn't play that much, like I said before. I love who they picked up here, okay? And like I said, the draft, no-brainer picking Nick Bosa. They got creative with Samuel and Hurd, I think. And Smith was a pretty good value late. Tight end Caden Smith. I believe he was from Stanford. And you know how Stanford creates tight ends out there. So here's the thing. I have to give this team 2.5 games back, right? San Francisco, 14 wins last year. Their Pythag was actually better at 5.19, so I give them a 4.6 for wins last year. For injuries, I'm giving them 2.5 games back, the most out of any team back, okay? And their schedule was hard. I'm giving them a game for that. It was the 6th hardest schedule. It made the threshold. Their schedule is medium this year, so 0. They didn't lose anything, really. So 0 on the losses, like I said. Just a little bit the linebacker there. They're drafting free agency. They killed it. I'm giving them a game and a half there. If you add all that up, no surprise that Vegas brought them from 4 to 8 wins because my number is 9.6. Okay? 9.6 for the San Francisco 49ers. Lastly, I'd like to say that this team, their turnover margin was minus 25 last year. The worst in the league by far. The 3rd and 4th other teams were minus 12 with the Jaguars and the Cardinals. Tampa Bay was minus 18, and then San Francisco was minus 25. They couldn't hold the ball. And it was partly because of losing their quarterback and putting in Mullins and fumbles and the defense not getting lucky. So there you go. They should have won a lot more games last year. But the thing that might keep me off this bet and the number one question to me is we